You know, it's honestly quite sobering to be making this list, especially considering the passing of two of the most iconic voices in music this year, those two being Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell. So before I actually start this list, I would like to pay my respects to both men and say that they had fucking awesome careers despite the dark circumstances that surrounded both their lives and untimely demises as well. The world misses you both, and may you both rest in peace. With that in mind, though, 2017 still had a great music scene, but one standout moment in particular was the last 1 month. It seemed like a new great album was released every week or so, and it made making this list very difficult. Even listing honorable mentions would take too long, but I'll chuck in a few that I liked anyway. Heroes and Empty Streets by The Decline, Great Heights and Nosedives by Rome, Outside of a Comeback Kid, You're Not You Anymore by Counterparts, and The Counting by The Used is essentially number 11 on this list, and it came very close to actually being on it. There are other albums, obviously, but I've wasted too much time already, so let's get on with it. These are my top 10 favourite albums of 2017. To kick things off, it's a somewhat surprising entry, as these were a band that I never listened to too much, but I decided to give this album a listen on a total whim anyway, and you know what? I'm kinda glad I did. At number 10, it's 18 by 18 Visions, or XVIII. I prefer to pronounce it 18. It's their first album since 2006, and it marks a good return for the band after a 10-year hiatus, with James Hart having obligations with the band Halo and other members of the band focusing on other projects at the time. Hello. But this album proves that no matter what type of band James Hart is fronting, he sounds like he's enjoying himself. His vocal range is absolutely insane, his screams are just so damn good, showing that he's improved a lot in that area. But more than just his voice is the absolutely crushing instrumental work. It's chock full of great breakdowns, savage riffs, and it just sounds awesome. 18 is a nice callback to more in-your-face metalcore. It's aggressive, it's abrasive, it doesn't pull its punches, and it's also just fun as hell to listen to, so listen to it when you can. Coming in at number 9 is another album that surprised me, especially considering the band behind it. Now, said bands behind this one aren't bad, but they'd always been just short of memorable in the past for me personally. But for this album, they completely nailed that, and number 9 is The Covering by Random Hero, and how the hell they did everything right on this album. After their previous two efforts just felt sort of the same as each other, they knew that something needed to change. It sure shit did for this one. Using more screaming and heavier vocals, stronger lyrical work, top-notch production value and great balance, The Covering might just be the album where Random Hero are finding themselves a little bit more. Everything is just so much tighter and just sounds better. It might not be the most well-known album by the most well-known band, but I enjoyed it nonetheless, and it's definitely worth your time if you can find it. Luckily, it's on YouTube, so you can find it. At number 8, we're taking things away from the aggression with possibly the most charming album that I've heard all year. I've talked about it before, but Pleasantries by a Decade is just such an endearing album. It's also the perfect example of what a long-awaited sequel should be following the band's 2014 debut and Good Luck. Change the style a bit, but just enough that it's still similar. I think what sells the album the most for me, though, is the improvement on the storytelling and lyrics, with Alex here showing a bit more of his personal side of his life while still having fun with it. I actually found myself smiling some of the time while listening to the album, and because of that, I think it was just because of the storytelling. It was really, really good. Obviously, the instrumental work was also great, and the polish was super sound too, but all in all, this one swept me off my feet, and it's just really, really charming and nice to listen to, so yeah, give it a go. Next up at number 7 is another sequel album, but unlike the last entry, the band that put this one out actually featured on my best albums of 2014 list with their debut. At number 7, it's Vessels by Starset, and much like Pleasantries by Decade, this follows another example of tweaking the sound just enough without alienating the target audience. But Starset have branched out into much more experimental territory with their work in the past, and it really works well here too. Adding more electronic elements while still keeping their heavy riffs and atmospheric sound, Starset proved why they're one of the best bands in the world today with Vessels. Even with the new stuff, there's still some aggressive stuff, some more melodic stuff, and just a lot of stuff for different types of people who like different types of stuff. Or in other words, listen to the album because it's damn brilliant. At number 6, it's the only debut album of the year to make it onto the list. It's another of those cases where I took a chance on listening to one of their songs, then fell in love instantly, and then checked the band out themselves. Well, you're about to find out who it is at number 6. And who would that be? That would be Dead, and the album being Misanthrope. Holy fuck, this is how you handle a debut. It's so hard to be a standout nu metal band when the genre can get oversaturated, but Dead had this newfound aggression and more punk rock attitude that I haven't heard in a long time. But besides that is the amount of respect that the band pays to their influences, such as Korn being the primary influence, and Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit as well, other bands like that. Add that with solid riffs, catchy hooks, and great production by John Feldman, and Misanthrope is a breath of fresh air in the somewhat stagnant nu metal genre. So give it a shot if you're up for it. Give it a shot as well, why not? We're at the halfway point now with the number 5, and what better way to kick off the top 5 of the list than with another awesome album? I mean, this entire list is full of albums that I think are awesome, but still. Anyway, number 5 is OK by As It Is. Now, there was a lot of standout pop punk this year with new albums by bands like Seaway and Rome, and West's debut album being awesome in their own right. But As It Is have sort of booked the sequel trend a bit, where they haven't so much changed the sound as they have their tone. Sure, there is some nice throwbacks to the mid-2000s pop-punk era, which is the era that I grew up in, and still love. But Perry Walter's lyrics go into a darker place, talking about his personal life and his past dealings with his depression and loneliness. Still, the album does have a shining light in the album's title and message, in that it's okay to not be okay. And this album is not just okay, this album is awesome. So, yeah. Next up is number 4, and it's yet another pleasant surprise, especially with how it came across the band themselves. To make a long story short, these guys play a badass theme song for a wrestler equally as badass named Tommy Andrew, Alistair Black as he's now known in NXT. The band are Incendiary, and the album is 1,000 Miles Stare. There was so much good hardcore punk this year, with so many of those bands experimenting with the genre, but for Incendiary to have a slightly older sound and still stand out from the rest is no easy task. Still, Incendiary pulled out a great album with great chugs and riffs and fantastic vocals and lyrics from Brendan Garone. It's the kind of hardcore punk album that delivers a balanced aspect of both hardcore and punk, and for that I can highly recommend this album, along with many other reasons. It's just a really, really good listen, so find it if you can. We then roll along to number 3, and I have to admit that I agonise a little bit over whether to put this here at the number 2 spot. This album might have lost the number 2 spot, but it was really narrow. So my number 3 album of the year is Sheep Among Wolves by Project 86. Now, I've been anticipating this album for a long time, especially considering that Notes of the Future came out in 2014, and goodness me did it deliver. I could go on about how fantastic Andrew Schrott's vocals and lyrics are, or how great the riffs and solos are, or the great production, or the fact that the album itself came out so late in the year and still made the top 10. Okay, I mean, all of that is true, but Project 86 have always been masters of how to handle the atmosphere of a song, and at 10 albums, with over 20 years under their belt now, they continue to master that art. It has been a worthwhile wait, and I can't wait for what they come out with next. It's going to be amazing. And now we reach number 2, and boy oh boy, the theme of long waiting periods continues. But unlike the last entry with a 3-year wait period since Project 86's last album, it took Converge 5 years to give us the Dusk in Us. And you know what? It was so fucking worth it. So yeah, The Dusk in Us by Converge is number 2, and I honestly believe that this is some of their best work since Jane Doe, and you guys know that my opinions of Jane Doe are very high, because it's a really good album. Converge just have a certain something about them. They're creative, ferocious, technically sound, have great production, and Jacob Banner's poetic lyrics and atmospheric vocals provide a great backdrop for the album. Add in a little bit more experimentation, and you have a near-perfect album. Like I said, it's near-perfect, but not quite. I still love it, though. It's up there with Jane Doe for best Converge stuff, for me personally. And so, here we are. My album of the year. Now, a lot of people probably saw this one coming, mostly because I wouldn't shut up about it. At number 1, it's You Are We by While She Sleeps. First of all, congrats to While She Sleeps for becoming only the second band to win 2 Album of the Year votes from me, the first one being The Wonder Years, and congrats in general for putting out their best work yet in You Are We. Taking a more DIY approach, the band's third album is a good example of this list's theme of experimentation without alienation. There are some new things and more melody here and there, but it's still aggressive. Their timing, storytelling, riffs, solos, drumming, bass work, all are stellar indeed. Lawrence Taylor's vocals and lyrics, alongside the vocals of the rest of the band added together, just sound amazing, and it makes this possibly While She Sleeps' best work yet, in my opinion. And you gotta remember, it is just my opinion. And with that opinion, this is my favourite album of 2017. Well, I'm honestly glad that's over, not because I hated doing it or anything, but because there were so many great albums that came out this past year, especially within the last 4 months, as I mentioned, that I could have put a lot of those on this list, but like I said at the start, even the honorable mentions would get too much to go through. So I'll keep it short and sweet and say that I hope that you enjoyed watching this. I'll see you all, there's a new UFC, at the end of the year, so I'll see you for that. And then I'll probably see you for my favourite UFC fights of the year again, maybe? If I have something ready by then. But it'll be out sometime early next year, that's all I tell you, but, I guess I got nothing else to say unless Hero does. Hero? No? Okay. With that in mind, it's sign off time, and I hope you enjoyed this list, but anyway. Thank you for listening. You're awesome. Bye bye.